Hello, everyone, and welcome to video 13 for the 2020 MATC Scholars Program. My name is Gabriel Bruguier. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator here at the Mid-America Transportation Center at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And in today's video, we're going to talk about some of the different courses of study in a humanities degree and in a liberal arts degree, some of the skills that you develop while you're studying that, and then thinking about a career afterwards. So without further ado, I will pull that presentation up and we'll get going. All right, there is our title screen for today. For the overview of the presentation, I'll talk about my background in both the liberal arts and humanities. Then I'll talk a little bit about the differences between liberal arts and humanities. I'll talk about some majors in liberal arts and humanities, the skills that are developed in the course of study, and then finally thinking about career options. All right, I've discussed this in a previous video, but here's a little bit more of a background. So my first degree is a licentiate in international relations from the University of the Americas, Puebla. And that is a liberal arts college that's modeled on a traditional liberal arts college, from the United States. And so it's got a course of study like we'll see in the next slide, which is pretty broad. And international relations is one of the social sciences. The next is a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy. Philosophy is a degree that you can take in the humanities, and that's from the University of Minnesota Morris. Now, the University of Minnesota Morris is a campus of the University of Minnesota system that's very unique in that it is a strictly liberal arts college. It's a small liberal arts college, and the sort of course of study is like we'll see in the next slide. And then after that, I went to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, where I took first a Master of Arts in Philosophy, and then finally a doctorate in philosophy. And again, that would be in the area of the humanities. Okay, so just to kind of get a little bit more detail into the difference between liberal arts and humanities. And the reason why I have this slide is because oftentimes people equate liberal arts with humanities and they run them together, but in fact, they're different in that liberal arts is a more general category that includes humanities, natural sciences, social sciences, and mathematics. Liberal arts itself is the combination of two Latin terms, liberalis, which means free, and ars, which means art or principled practice. And it refers to a course of study or curriculum which draws from a wide variety of disciplines. So in each of those categories, humanities, natural sciences, social science, and mathematics, there are a number of different classes that would fit into that. And so it would include a course of study that combines all those different areas. The idea is that students who complete such a course of study will have, one, a broad knowledge base, and two, an inclination and the skills to conduct open inquiry to solve problems. And it's modeled on a very old educational system, one, I think, back to the medieval. Okay, I'm not a historian, but I do know that at a certain point in history, the liberal arts was the extent of human knowledge that was gathered at one time. So if you studied this course of study, you essentially knew everything, even though that's not strictly true. But it was used for preparation for people who would go into law, government positions, into business and commerce, into education. So it was the kind of general education to prepare people for any profession. In our current system, a degree from a liberal arts college or from a liberal arts division of a university like UNL, it will include classes from each of the categories named above. The course of studies contrasts with others that are strictly vocational, professional, or technical. That is, degrees from those classifications won't have such a broad curriculum that students have to follow. And then finally, humanities is a branch of the liberal arts, but it does not exhaust it. And that's the main difference. That's what sets them apart. Okay, so in our next slide, I've got a model liberal arts degree. And so it takes that chart before, but it adds a little bit more information. And that information has to do with the hours that are required in order to take a degree. In this case, I'm using international relations as an example. So, and I'm also using the credit requirements of 120. But as I was doing my research into this, a lot of schools will have that general credit hour requirement. And so UNL requires 120 hours for graduation with a minimum cumulative GPA of 2.0. And of that 120 hours, 44 hours are required for the international relations major. And there's further breakdowns, but I just wanted to say that of those 120, 44 are specifically major related, and then 76 are required for ACE and college distributions. And that kind of refers to the general knowledge base. So what I've done, I've represented that by splitting the 76 evenly between 4. And so you'd be taking 19 hours of humanities classes, 19 hours of natural sciences, 19 hours of a non-major social science. So you'd have a broader understanding of social sciences, and then 19 hours of mathematics. And again, that's just kind of an artificial way, but it just illustrates the point of how many different areas you'd have to meet requirements in order to take, in this case, a degree in international relations. All right, now I want to contrast that to a different sort of case. And this is what I myself experienced when I transferred with credits to the University of Minnesota Morris. So in this slide, I've got the humanities, I've got a philosophy 40 hours, and then in the natural science, social sciences, and mathematics, I didn't have to do any credit hours for those. And so of the, of the 120, I really only had to focus on the 40 that were specific to philosophy in order to take that degree. And the benefit of that, like we've discussed in previous videos, and that I want to support again, is just that when you are strictly focused on your major, it will give you an opportunity to really focus your attention and also to sort of deepen your involvement with that major. And so that's one of the benefits of transferring with credits, is that you can concentrate specifically on the major that you intend to pursue. Now, in this slide, it's called Planning Ahead. And what I want to say, or what I want to argue, is that based on the research resources in our MATC Scholars Program videos, it's possible to create a situation in which you focus on your intended major classes. And so what I want to do is just signal the videos where we've talked about this, so that if you're planning ahead, you can come up with a concrete plan to, when you go into a 4-year institution, go in strong and be ready to concentrate on your major. So in video 4, Riddell talks about course equivalency for transfer credits. And so that is specific to UNL, and it has, in this case, classes from other institutions, and you can match those up. But I found that similar information is available from my video 9 to other schools that you might consider. So I have links to the University of Minnesota Morris, Wayne State, and also Fort Lewis College, or I've already forgotten that last one, but it's in video. It's in video 9, the Scholars Program videos. So what you can do is you can look at what the equivalency is for that particular school and compare that to what you have completed already in your transcript. And you might also think about, if you are lacking in what they offer, taking extra classes now while you're at a community college, which offers a closer interaction with faculty and other things like that, familiarity with your faculty and other benefits. So in video 3, Carmen talks about resources in academic advising so that you can enter your major strong and maintain focus on it. And what I mean by that is that she breaks down the differences in what you might expect if you are going into, like a Bachelor of Arts versus a Bachelor of Science. So if you review that, you'll get an idea of the kind of things that you can work on now so that when you get to a 4-year institution, you will be as best prepared as you possibly can. So in summary, it's possible for you to create a plan in which you satisfy future degree requirements while you are at your current institution. And as I mentioned before in the previous video, and I'll repeat now, I found that to be extremely helpful when I was wanting to concentrate on philosophy. I'll mention this further on in the video, but having come from a different area of study to another one, I was really enthusiastic. And so when I got to studying philosophy, I found that I could just kind of throw myself into it, and it was really great. So that's something that I wanted to bring to your attention, planning ahead for your future transfer into a 4-year institution. Okay. So in our next slide, I thought I'd talk about some liberal arts majors. And this is not exhaustive. You might find more degrees at different institutions. I did take this from the University of Nebraska College of Arts and Sciences website, but like I said, you will find a similar offering in other 4-year institutions. So you've got anthropology, communication studies, economics, political science, psychology, sociology. And what I have there, I don't want to go into all of that, but the smaller print has to do with the areas of focus that you can take in each of these different things. So each degree will include some introductory classes, which, introduce you to the subject in a general way. And then as you progress in the major, you'll be able to choose a concentration. And what I've done in this smaller print is given you the areas of concentration that you can choose within a specific thing. So for example, I guess I'll do psychology. So psychology, after you finish your introductory classes, you can concentrate on clinical sciences and human service, neuroscience, and psychological science. So that's those are some options if you are looking into the liberal arts. And I know from having reviewed the background of many of the students that are in the Scholars Program currently, general liberal arts, concentration is a great stepping stone to the sort of majors that you see here listed. Excuse me. All right, and so in the next slide, I will list some humanities majors. And so we've got classics and religious studies, English, film studies, modern languages, history, and philosophy. And again, each of these has the same sort of breakdown or distribution where you have introductory classes and then concentration classes. And so you can concentrate in history, for example, in history of the United States, history of Latin America, South America, the Middle East, Europe, Russia, China, and Africa, from the ancient civilizations to modern history. So there's lots of different areas that you can concentrate in. And I thought it would take a little bit of time, specifically with regards to philosophy, because that's what I have. I guess that's what I have the most time invested in. So one of the things that we wanted to have with the Scholars Program is people who have, gone and done advanced degrees to talk a little bit about what they do in that discipline. So here is my background in philosophy. So I started getting an interest in philosophy when I was studying for the international relations degree. And that would be an interest in epistemology and metaphysics. Epistemology is just the special term for theory of knowledge, and metaphysics refers to kind of a theory about reality, or a theory about the nature of reality. And so I found, as I was studying, I discovered what postmodernism is. And postmodernism, especially when it's applied to a social science like international relations, will discredit in various ways the empiricist framework, or the background presuppositions of what reality is. And I didn't agree with that. By empiricist epistemology, I mean that it's a way of knowing the world that's based on observation. So think, observational method in science. And by realist supposition, I mean that just means that, it's the belief that there's an external world that isn't influenced by the way we talk or think about it. And both of those areas are challenged by postmodernist thinkers. And then I found that to be very interesting. So I wrote my licentiate thesis, looking at the arguments and then arguing against those. So I kind of got my background in philosophy while I was studying international relations. And so that, for me, in my case, that really sparked an interest to pursue philosophy further. And I kind of was thinking about going to graduate school anyway. So that meant, for me, the next step would be to go to graduate school. However, not having a degree in that specific subject kind of put me at a disadvantage for applying to graduate school. So that's why in my educational history, you see a Bachelor of Arts degree. And when I got to the Bachelor of Arts in philosophy that I studied in Morris, I was still really interested in epistemology, but I became interested in the philosophy of mathematics. And so the question there is that supposing that mathematics is a discipline whose objects are abstract, how can we justify our mathematical knowledge? And so what that means is that, the objects of math being abstract. So there's not a specific thing which is a number 2, for example. There you might find instances of 2 things, but 2 itself is considered to be an abstract objects, and abstract objects are just classified as things that exist, but that don't have any sort of spatio-temporal location. They're eternal objects. They don't come into being and then go out of being, and some other metaphysical presuppositions. And if you contrast the way that we have knowledge, like empirical knowledge of the rest of the world, it seems funny that we might be able to have knowledge of these abstract objects. So I got really interested in that question, and I did a lot of research and reading on the various discussions that exist around that question. One of the things that I was able to do while I was studying for the bachelor's, excuse me, is that I applied for and won a undergraduate research grant, which basically was money to read. I had a book list of 2 books, and I got paid to read those books. Of course, I had to, take copious notes and write reports and have regular meetings with a faculty member. But I mean, it was a really amazing experience, and it got me really interested in the question, and also really, it was a very well-rounded research experience. So that was for my bachelor's degree. And so I kind of carried on with the interest in philosophy of math as I went to graduate school. And I also got into aspect of history of philosophy with the empiricist David Hume. He argues that we do have a cognitive ability to justify certain basic mathematical truths. And I won't go too into the details of that account, but I was working on that. And then I wrote what would be called my master's thesis on that. And I was I was going to write a dissertation on that, so I would have got my doctorate in that. But there's also throughout the whole course of study, I was interested in value theory, and that sort of won out. So value theory has to do one of the main questions of value theory is what makes a good life. How do we define value within that life? And I was really drawn to this account, which says love and identification. It's a subjectivist position argued by the American philosopher Harry Frankfurt. And I thought that was really interesting as compared to a view that would say that value is kind of like those abstract objects where they exist eternally. They are what they are, regardless of what humans think about them. With love and identification, it has to do with a subject's identification with something, and it could be an activity, it could be a person, it could be even an object. And the connection to that and the way that that person structures her life around that particular object, or person, or relationship, or activity is called love and identification. And that's a subjectivist account because it does have to do with what people think about it. And so I had kind of developed interest in that throughout the course of my studies. And then, to be honest, at a certain point, I was writing the dissertation on the philosophy of math, and I just sort of lost steam on that. And at the same time, I was teaching an introductory class, and I had it was a course in ethics, which is value theory. Those two go together. And so I was thinking a lot about this, and I was really interested in this question about what makes a life meaningful. I'd taught about this in earlier classes and got really drawn into the question. And at that point in time, it just kind of stuck. And so I went through the process of changing dissertation topics, dissertation advisors, dissertation committees. There's a lot of paperwork that goes into pretty much everything in academics, which I'm sure you are aware of. But I went through that, and then I changed, and then I eventually wrote my dissertation on meaning in life. And the position that I argue for in the dissertation, I call the resonating role account. And then I argue that meaning in life is an evaluative phrase that applied when a subject pursues a unique social or natural role well, when that role resonates with her and when they maintain a minimum balance of her attention. So if you're interested in that, I know that our time is increasing on this video, so I won't go too deep into the weeds of that, but I'm happy to talk about that. Now, my present research, I'm still interested in meaning, but I'm kind of going in more personal direction, and that's meaning from Native perspectives. I'm really interested in a Native American account of meaning in life. And so I've been working on a study of Lakota holy men and philosophers with special attention to the uniqueness of these accounts as compared to other accounts of meaning in life that are contemporary now in the discussion or in the literature, and how they have to do with the subject and environment. So I'm very interested in that, working on a paper for that. And then I'm also working on meaning and education. How does a subject's educational experience, I guess, would contribute to meaning in her life? And then I have a special focus or interest on Native experiences. And so the research that I did for the dissertation contributes to that that present research, but now I'm able to sort of pursue personal interests, and those have to do with Native perspectives, and yeah, so that's my background in philosophy. Again, I can kind of just say, like I mentioned in previous slides, I started out with classes that were just introductory, had to do with just kind of introducing the subject in a very broad way, and then just going deeper and deeper and deeper into a specialization on a specific topic. And so the course that I've just kind of talked to you about is an illustration of that in a large sense. Okay. Next is skills developed in humanities. I guess that could also be liberal arts majors. So the skills that you develop are close reading skills, focused writing skills, ability to see issues from many different perspectives, ability to articulate your support of an issue, public speaking skills, and increased cultural awareness. So all of those come from the activities that you do within the major. I can tell you, for example, with philosophy involves a lot of reading, and a lot of reading. And you do have to write, and writing a philosophy can be very difficult. But it teaches you how to write in such a way that you transmit very, very, very narrowly your ideas, and the ability to see issues from many different perspectives. Philosophy is often a debate between two different issues. And so in order to understand the larger thing that's going on, you have to understand how people are staking out their claims on that issue, and then how you come down on one side or another, and then being able to explain that, and then having just a general awareness of all the different factors that go into why people think what they think. So that, I guess, was my way of talking about the skills developed in humanities majors by talking about some of the skills that are developed in a philosophy major. All right, and then my second to last slide has to do with thinking about career options. So I've said this in previous videos, and I want to repeat it and underscore that liberal arts and humanities degrees prepare you for a wide variety of careers. Now, there are certain degrees that correspond to certain careers a little bit better, like they're a better fit. So for example, psychology is a really good fit for counseling, sociology, social work. So there are certain careers that, a certain degree would work best for. But in general, a liberal arts or humanities degree is a great option for, work in, actually, I don't I started to make the list, but it got so exhaustive that I just kind of gave up on it. So it's very wide. But I did want to add the point that you might need to obtain other qualifications. So for example, one thing I had in mind with that is that, teaching, for example, if you take a history degree, you might also need to take or get a certificate or qualifications for teaching. The same thing for social work and counseling. There might be other qualifications. So as you're thinking about what you're interested in pursuing down the line, you might think more broadly than the 4-year degree, but also other qualifications that are required for that particular career. Just because, the degree might not be whatever the requirements are from that particular place. So that's just something to keep in mind now when you're at the stage where you can start planning for that. All right, so for our video response question, what I'd like you to think about is, of all the liberal arts and humanities majors that I discussed, please indicate the one that you have most interest in and briefly discuss why. And so when you send me that, I can send you some further information, which I have available to me. So you say, oh, I like history because I'm interested in learning about one thing I've been thinking about is the history of the Yankton Sioux on the reservation since the 19th century. So that's my particular interest in history currently. And then I can send you information that has more then I can send you information that goes beyond what I talked about in the previous slides. All right, so that will conclude my talk today. Again, I'd like to thank you for your participation in our MATC Scholars program. There's just going to be a few more videos left, and so I'm glad that you've made it this far, and I want to thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.